This week, Siskel and Ebert review hitman Alec Baldwin falling for Demi Moore in The Juror. A supermodel turned singer lives life on the edge in Nico Icon. And skipper Jeff Bridges sails his student crew into a deadly white squall.
Protect you, Annie.
Demi Moore is a juror in a murder trial who, unless she votes not guilty, will find herself under a death sentence from a mob enforcer played by Alec Baldwin in The Juror, one of 5 new films we're reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert, along with Jeff Bridges in a true-life thriller about a ship's captain and his teenage crew, and also films about a gutsy dog and a face that Andy Warhol made famous. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Our first movie is The Juror, starring Demi Moore and Alec Baldwin, and curiously enough, it has exactly the same underlying plot idea as last week's Eye for an Eye. A mother fears that a psychopath who has killed before and will kill again will murder her son, so she takes things into her own hands. Early in the movie, Moore, who is a sculptor, has been selected for jury duty in a murder trial involving a top mafia boss. At about the same time, she meets a man who has just spent $24,000 on some of her sculptures. They go out on a date, and she quickly realizes he's no art collector. He's a messenger with a warning from the mob.
You're in danger, and your son is in danger.
Oliver, what do you mean? Where's my son?
He went with Jesse and Julia to the movies, didn't he? He's gonna be all right. You're such an extraordinary child. Remember last night when the two of you were playing that video game upstairs and you started to panic and he said, "Chill out, Mama." You remember that?
How do you know that?
He tells her that unless she leads the jury in finding the mob boss not guilty, bad things will happen to those she loves.
Well, I'm sorry for the fear. If I had any choice. But if I can keep you scared, I can save your life.
Moore realizes her entire life is being spied on and eavesdropped on by Baldwin, so she desperately warns her son that it's dangerous to talk.
Say it. Say, I'll never talk about this in the car.
I'll never talk about this in the car.
Or in the house.
Or in the house.
Can she turn to the law for help? Of course not. The judge doesn't even want to be in the same room with her.
When a juror visits a judge, this can have serious consequences. Now, if you still have a problem and you want to talk about it, and I'll call the defense attorney and the DA and we'll
No, I want to talk to you alone. I don't want them. I only want to talk to you.
The Juror is not a very good movie, but at least it's not an outright call for vigilante justice as Eye for an Eye was. And the movie has more interesting characters, too, especially Alec Baldwin's hitman, who is a combination of intellectual, philosopher, and psychopath. But the movie doesn't wind the tension up very tightly, and it goes on far too long, spinning the plot out with long-winded dialogue and an unnecessary, to say the least, side trip to Guatemala. So, thumbs down from me.
Thumbs down from me, and I think both films are junk, Roger.
Okay.
Now, let me tell you what I think is really going on. I think that this is just another case of showing a pretty woman in danger, and it's a little bit on the sick side. I'm really tired of this. I don't think this is a strong woman's character. No, come on. This is a beautiful woman, Demi Moore, one of the most beautiful women in films today, and she is being hunted and spied upon and eavesdropped on, and she's under constant threat. And I'm telling you that there is a meanness to these kinds of stories.
Oh, well, Gene,
I really do think so, Roger.
You know, the most unsavory scene in the entire movie involves her friend, the woman doctor. Now, wait a minute.
I know.
And Alec Baldwin.
I was going to get to that.
First, he makes love to her, then he forces her to kill herself.
Yeah.
That I looked at. I thought, was it really necessary when they had the script conference?
And Roger,
was it really necessary to have this scene in the movie? What did it contribute?
Now let me tell you something. And you know what her sin is? Her sin is that she's a professional woman. And you know how often she's a doctor, okay? She's the most probably a better doctor than Demi Moore is a sculptor, if you really want to get into it. And professional women in the movies are either harpies, unsatisfied with love, or they're killed. I'm telling you, we have not progressed in the last 20 or 30 years in movie making. We're still getting, for all the women involved in film, and there are many more, the stars are still selecting junk. And I blame Demi Moore for it. I'm sorry. Okay. Because she doesn't have to make this kind of film. She can make a lot of other kinds of projects. Okay, next movie, and I've said this before, but I really hate to dump on new children's films. They're in such short supply. I hate to do it, but I often do. Especially in the animated film arena, where the Disney folks have really upped the ante in terms of drawings and songs, from The Little Mermaid to Toy Story now. Now comes Balto from another shop, and it just doesn't cut it, telling the adventure yarn of a gutsy sled dog that helped save the population of Nome, Alaska during a 1925 outbreak of diphtheria by carrying medicine through ice and snow.
Mush!
There's a romantic side to the story as the movie tries to cover all bets. Here's the dog's best friend, a Russian snow goose, advising Balto to romance a purebred husky, even though Balto himself is half husky, half wolf. Balto's voice is by Kevin Bacon, the goose by Bob Hoskins.
This wolf business again. And what's wrong with being half and half, I'd like to know. Sometimes I wish like crazy I was half eagle. Why? Better profile for one thing. And no one eats you for another.
What about that female husky? Bridget Fonda supplies the voice of Jenna, who doesn't seem all that glamorous to me.
The Northern Lights. Oh, Balto, you're right. It's beautiful.
And they're no Lady and the Tramp. And the whole drawing style seems sketchy to me, and the story is all over the map, from the rousing adventure to the sweet and cloying scenes. I saw Balto about 6 weeks ago, and I haven't thought about it since, which is most unlike me for a good children's film.
Well, I liked it, Gene. It's not in the category of the great animated films. Sure, the animation isn't at the Disney level. It isn't. But the story was interesting. The fact that they have to go and get this medicine, and he's got the evil dog who didn't even mention, who was trying to set things up to blackmail him and make him look like the bad dog when really he's the hero. And then the local kids who are involved in the whole struggle, and then all of that stuff involving the ice and the snow and the caves that they get caught in. Kids will enjoy this movie.
I don't know that to be true. Okay. If it had been a straight line on the adventure of it, and it had been done in a different kind of drawing style, it could have been a rousing, a little bit more
wrong with the drawing style.
Oh, you even said it so just a few seconds ago. You said it's sketchy. It isn't at the level.
No. You said it was sketchy. I said it wasn't at the level of the Disney stuff.
Of course, it isn't fully drawn.
But it's perfectly adequate to tell the story in an entertaining way.
Boy, there's a real recommendation. Adequate.
No, Gene, just listen to me for a second.
I have.
This is a nice little children's adventure movie about a brave dog, and I liked it.
When you have kids of your own, you won't send them to see nice little ones. You'll want quality. When we come back, White Squall, starring Jeff Bridges, in the story of young sailors who learn some hard lessons of life.
The ship beneath you is not a toy, and sailing's not a game. Respect that, and we'll do fine.
Climb. Come on, we'll do it together. I can't. You climb, damn it!
A skipper played by Jeff Bridges forces one of his young crew members to overcome vertigo and climb the rigging in that scene from White Squall, an adventure movie that begins in 1960 when a class of high school students signs aboard a sailing school ship for a year-long voyage. There are adventures along the way, including a tricky moment when they're threatened by a Cuban naval patrol. This is just before the time of the Bay of Pigs invasion.
They think we're carrying Cuban refugees, Skipper. I don't think they're going to take it very lightly that I'm a Cuban national.
Nothing's going to happen. Remind them that according to the Geneva Convention, firing on citizens on the high seas is an act of war.
Calamity strikes toward the end of the voyage when a dreaded white squall suddenly appears. Events during the storm lead to a Coast Guard inquiry, which plays a lot like courtroom scenes in general, and the end of the movie Scent of a Woman in particular.
You really felt that your crew was up to the conditions?
We had come 12,000 miles together through every kind of seas imaginable.
Except a White Squall. Now, with all due respect, Captain, they're only boys.
care much more than that, sir.
White Squall is a big, energetic, good-looking picture directed with a lot of energy by Ridley Scott, and I like the elements that deal with sailing. But the human story was less impressive. Much is made of Bridges' desire to shape these kids, but his philosophy doesn't seem to go any deeper than obeying discipline and sticking together. I'm recommending the movie, but for the sensational photography and the very effective storm sequence, not for the thin story.
Have the courage. Have the courage to knock this picture.
Have the courage to admit that you like the storm sequence at least.
Who cares?
You did? You like it or not? Pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah, and,
Pretty great,
and the boats were great too.
Yeah, okay, so isn't that part of the whole visceral experience of going to a movie?
No, Roger. That isn't what this movie is about. This movie spends umpteen amounts of time, just by comparison, to the story of these individual kids. And each kid gets its formula, and you know it. Each kid gets his turn in the barrel. One kills the dolphin. One can't climb the mast. Another one has problems with its parents. All this sort of stuff. I mean, give me a break. It's just like it's a shooting gallery of kids.
I give you that.
I know you
said it in my review. I'm saying I give the movie a marginal recommendation.
So the boats are beautiful.
Well, wait a minute. Now that diminishes it. The boats are beautiful. The scenery is beautiful. The storm sequences are beautiful. The way the ship sails.
Well,
and actually Jeff Bridges' performance.
And it is
all of that is very good.
Yeah, and a character that you don't think is fully written in terms of his advice and ministering to these kids. It was you said so yourself. If it were a documentary about boats, Roger, I might give it a thumbs up too. It isn't.
When we come back, one of the beautiful people from the 60s, a model actress known simply as Nico, has her glamorous and tragic life examined in a new documentary. Nico Icon is next.
And it was Bob Dylan that introduced me. And he also told Andy that he should make movies with me. I guess he wanted to look at me through a magnifying glass.
That's the beautiful face of a model and actress and singer known in the 1960s as simply Nico. She became a star through her association with Andy Warhol, but living your life primarily as just a surface image is rarely satisfying, and the rise and fall of Nico is the subject of a sad new documentary film called Nico Icon. She was born with the name Christa Pafkin in Germany during World War II, raised without a father, and as I stared at her beautiful face in her early modeling career, right in the beginning of this film, I remember thinking that the source of her later problems had to be that she lacked adequate family support.
I can't give my heart to you, or tell you that I sing your name.
She traveled and worked in glamorous circles, appearing in no less a film than Fellini's La Dolce Vita. But her most enduring link was with Andy Warhol and his film Chelsea Girls. The director of that film, Paul Morrissey, remembers Nico.
She thought this was some sort of disgrace to be beautiful. It was just a stupid German perversity, I guess. But in those days, modeling was not artistic. It was, artistic was to be like Janis Joplin, screaming your lungs out before you die of drug addiction.
Through Warhol's influence, Nico managed to sing with the cult band Velvet Underground and on her own as well. John Cale produced some of her records.
I don't think anybody was impressed with the musical ability. I mean, singing in tune was the first kind of objection that was brought up.
The lifestyle of the Warhol crowd included drug use, and here's where Nico met her undoing. She would become a heroin addict and lose the face that made her famous. She also would become so self-loathing that she would turn her own son, by actor Alain Delon, onto heroin.
I did a 3-week coma. I was dead clinically. I mean, I was on a life support machine. And my mother, she came to see me, and she wanted to record the sound of the life support machine, to put it on a record.
Throughout the many interviews in Nico Icon, a theme emerges. We meet or hear about the men who used her and her image. And there was a tremendous gap, I think, also between her and her image, between those magical lines and bone structure of her face and the person she was really inside. It might be glib to suggest that Nico ultimately became alienated from her face, but even more frightening, maybe her face became her only true friend.
It is a sad and a fascinating documentary, and the whole story of how she had a child by Alain Delon, and then He refused paternity, although you can look at the kid and see that it's obviously his. She fed the kid on potato chips. Finally, Elaine Delon's mother takes the child in, and Delon says, if you take that child, I'll never talk to you again. And he never did. He comes over in this movie as a really, really disgusting guy, and she comes across as a person who apparently shut down her emotions to such a degree that she hated her life, she hated her face, she didn't have any fun in anything. She spent the last 10 or 15 years of her life looking for drugs, and then she died. It's a very sad story.
But well told,
yes,
because
very well told.
It has
lots of good interviews.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you would think it would be kind of dry to have one talking head after another. Not so in this case. When we come back, a menage a trois in French Twist.
A lot of things made me unhappy while I was watching a so-called comedy named French Twist. One was that I was watching it at all. This movie is pure, contrived torture, an idiotic sitcom plot that seems to run on forever and involves people of no intelligence, no wit, and no interest. So, that depressed me. And I'll tell you what depressed me even more later, after we take a look at the film, which involves a married couple who unexpectedly find themselves with a lesbian house guest.
Faut rester dîner ce soir? Bah, c'est-à-dire, je veux pas déranger, j'ai tout ce qu'il faut dans ma caisse.
Non, vous dérangez pas du tout, au contraire.
Eh non.
The wife, played by Victoria A. Brill, gets friendly with the lesbian, played by Josiane Velasco. The wife and the husband fight. The husband leaves, and when a friend tries to patch things up, he makes them even worse.
Il m'a trompé, c'est ça? Et tu le savais? Avec qui?
Avec qui? Avec personne. Oh ben c'est pas grave, Loli. Bon, une ou deux fois en passant, parce que c'est un homme et qu'il a des besoins.
They make a truce. All three will live in the house. But that arrangement, even so, leads to big arguments.
Ça va pas du tout, Pluto! Mauricio, ça va?
I suppose this basic situation could have been made into a passable comedy. In fact, in La Cage aux Folles, similar material was made into a hilarious film. But French Twist is excruciatingly bad, boring, artificial, and contrived. And here's what depresses me really. This worthless film, this piece of junk, has been chosen by the French as their official Academy Award entry in the same year that they could have selected the great Claude Lelouch film Les Miserables. But that film showed some French as Nazi collaborators, while this one merely shows them as idiots. I guess it's clear which choice they prefer.
It is stunning. You know, the French film industry is saying, we need protection for our own kind. America is dwarfing us. So look what you send out to America. Here's what you endorse into America. I mean, it's absurd. The Lelouch film, Les Miserables, is the great French story, the national treasure.
Yes, it is.
Updated to contemporary times where it has a meaning.
And with a great performance by one of their real screen icons, Jean-Paul Belmondo, in the performance of his entire career, I would really like to sit down for 1 second with the people in France who felt that French Twist was a better movie than Les Miserables, and get them to look me in the eye, because they couldn't. The fix was in, and it's totally corrupt.
It is completely corrupt. Coming up next, our video pick of the week, a film that just won a top honor and features a remarkable rendition of a great historical figure.
I just wonder how many times you have to be hit on the head before you figure out who's hitting you.
Siskel and Ebert's Video Pick of the Week, brought to you by Orville Redenbacher's Gourmet Popping Corn, the best part of the movies.
Now it's time for our Video Pick of the Week, and of course on this show we feature commentary about movies released in movie theaters, but every so often Roger and I find a made-for-TV film worthy of note, and Truman from HBO Pictures was such a case. It's now been issued on home video, and its star just won the Golden Globe as Best Actor in a made-for-TV movie, and deservedly so. Gary Sinise, who played Lieutenant Dan in Forrest Gump and also starred in Apollo 13 as the astronaut who stayed on the ground, plays President Harry S. Truman, and he does a brilliant job playing, particularly the much older chief executive. Truman, of course, became president not through election but through succession after the death of Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
I don't know if any of you ever had a load of hay fall on you, but right now I feel like the moon, the stars, and all the planets have fallen on me.
Before that, however, this film Truman does a very good job at revealing the character that would take a Missouri haberdasher to the White House.
You know what the Cardinal said? Disloyalty. Politics is the business of friends.
Well, does that mean I'm supposed to let your friend steal $10,000?
$10,000? Is that what this yelling is about?
I don't care if it's 10,000 or 10 million. Tom, I told you when I agreed to run, I wasn't going to stand for any monkey business.
Truman, my video pick of the week. Now let's recap the movies we reviewed on this show. 2 thumbs down, way down for The Juror, with Demi Moore in danger from mob enforcer Alec Baldwin. A split vote on the animated children's tale Balto. Roger liked the story of the gutsy sled dog. I didn't like the way it was drawn or the way the story lurched all over the map emotionally. A split vote on White Squall. Roger really enjoyed the physical look of the picture, the seas, the boats. I got tired of the people in the picture. 2 thumbs up, however, on Nico Icon, the documentary of what happened to a very beautiful face. A fine piece of work by director Susan Ofteringer. And finally, 2 thumbs down, quite sincerely, for French Twist.
That's it for this week. Next week we'll be back with reviews of more new movies, including Broken Arrow, starring John Travolta as a renegade bomber pilot and Christian Slater as his former partner. And also Beautiful Girls, starring Uma Thurman as just one of the reasons best friends Matt Dillon and Timothy Hutton find it hard to settle down. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.